Did you know you've been using puppet pins wrongly this whole time? Well, let's open up After Effects and I'll show you what I'm talking about. I already set up this composition in After Effects. It consists of two layers, an arm and a hand. So now let's see what we can do. In other tutorials, they'll just simply tell you, if you want to animate an arm, you simply put a pin on the shoulder, the elbow, and the wrist. And then you can use the last pin to animate the arm. Does this look like a natural arm to you? Doesn't look like a natural arm to me either. So the better way to do this is to add a point on the shoulder, 2 points very close to each other on the elbow, and another point on the wrist. Now, let's access our pins. The first thing we want to do is make sure that Puppet Pin 2 and Puppet Pin 3 are in the same position. We can do this by whipping the position of Puppet 2 to Puppet 3. And now they're indeed in the same place. Now when we move the last point, the arm looks a bit more natural, but it still looks like a sausage to me. So what we can do is add this little script to make Puppet Pin 3 look at Puppet Pin 4, to rotate as you move it. So the way to do this is to change the Puppet Pin from position to advance. Let's copy our code, and then we can go to the rotation here. If we hold Alt and press the left mouse button, it's going to open our expressions window here. We paste the code, and we change the end to the position value of Puppet Pin 4 and the beginning to the position value of Puppet Pin 3. Now when we move the wrist Puppet Pin, the hand bends in a more natural way. We can also get a hand involved in all this by adding this tiny script to it. So let's access Puppet Pin 4, Alt and left mouse button to access the expressions window, paste the script, and change this to the hand layer. And now Puppet Pin 4 is going to follow the hand. And now you have a mostly articulated hand. Now if all this looks a bit too complicated for you, it just so happens that I have an After Effects script called DaVinci Essential Tools, which is available to any of my Patreons that pledge $10 or more a month. That's a good deal. Now what we can do is, just like before, set the 4 pins, so one on the shoulder, 2 very close to each other on the elbow, and one on the wrist. We select these 4 pins and we press the I key button down here. And the button automatically sets everything up, including giving it an inverse kinematic function that will automatically move our elbow the closer our wrist and shoulders are together. So if we move the 4th puppet pin now closer to the shoulder, the arm automatically bends. You don't have to animate the elbow manually. And of course, if we want the wrist pin to follow the hand, what we simply do is select the hand layer, select the 4 pin, and click this puppet pin button down here, pin to anchor. And now we have a fully articulated hand. Isn't that amazing? Okay, now let's look at another case where you can be using puppet pins in a better way. I have this composition already set up. It's a picture of a 9-to-5 worker working at his desk. So what I've already done is I've parented the head layer and the arms layer. So when we rotate the body, everything is rotating with the body. But we want his arm to type away the PC independent of the rotation of his body. So what we can do is simply add 2 pins to the arm. One on the shoulder and one on the wrist. Then we can parent the wrist to the hand by using this piece of code or by using my extension script. For tutorial purposes, I'm just going to use my script. So we select the hand layer and we select the 2nd pin. And we press the pin button. And now the 2nd pin of our arm is parented to this hand layer. Now when we rotate the body of the zombie, we can see that this arm stays firmly on the keyboard. Now let's do that for the back arm as well, even though we'll never see it typing. We can do this by adding a null layer over here, then by adding 2 pins to the arm, again on the shoulder and on the wrist, and then we'll select the null object and the 2nd pin and press the pin button. Now let's see if that worked. So when we rotate the zombie of this handsome worker, his hands are still firmly on the keyboard. Now, let's animate the fingers. So as you can see, I have the fingers and the hand all in one layer, but why did I do this? Well, when you're animating things with puppet pins, it's easier to have everything on one layer than to have it in multiple layers. Since After Effects is going to split the layer into multiple island meshes, as long as they're not connected. Let me show you what I'm talking about. We'll start with the pinky. We'll add a pin to the beginning of the finger and one to the end of the finger. Now select both pins and we can move it to the hand. And let's do this for all the other fingers as well. And there we have it. Even though the fingers are all on one layer, we can individually animate them and they'll even overlap each other. So now let's actually animate the fingers. We'll start this by having the first and the third finger up and the middle finger and the pinky finger down. Then we'll go 10 frames forward. We'll put the first and third finger down and have the middle finger and pinky finger up. Then we'll go 10 seconds forward and we're just going to copy the first keys here. Since the first puppet pin in all the fingers is the same, we don't need it anymore. We're just going to delete it. And in order for our worker to continuously be typing on the keyboard, we don't want to add hundreds of keyframes. We can just add a simple code to have them looping. As long as the first and the last keyframe are the same, it should loop out perfectly. So just add loop out. Add this to all the fingers. Let's see if that worked. Yes, indeed, it does kind of look like the zombie's typing. So to make this scene more dynamic, let's have his hand move a bit. We can do this by adding the position property, going a few frames forward, move his hand a little bit to the left, and then move his hand a little bit to the right, and then going back to the original position. We can loop this out as well. Let's add some rotation to the body so he looks like he's swaying while he's typing. Let's loop this out as well. I'm just going to move the screen to the front layer because we don't want to see his fingers over the screen. Okay, let's check the animation. Yes, indeed, our worker is happily typing away at his job. Now to make this look a little bit smoother, let's add some easy ease to all these keyframes. Now, of course, you could do that by holding Alt and double tapping on a keyframe and then to, let's say, adding 33 outgoing velocity and 33 incoming velocity. But then you would have to do this for each frame manually. Alternatively, what you can do is get my script and simply press this button over here. And it's going to do it automatically. Now it's a bit more dynamic. Let's just add a bit of motion to the back hand as well. We'll just copy the position values of the front hand, add them here, and add some offset. And since we don't want the hands to be synchronously moving, let's just offset these keyframes a bit. And there you go, in a couple of minutes we just managed to animate a worker working at his desk. I hope that helps. See you next time.